Hey John, just reading my favorite book.
Oh, what a coincidence. I wanted to talk about that.
And
So
I'm
first
wearing my
off,
favorite merch.
yeah, everybody check out the merch at the website. Hunter will put in the link in the description. We got a multiple products at this point.
Yep, lots to choose from. And we're gonna
So
do a giveaway. If you comment in this video, we'll select one lucky winner and send you some merch. It'll
okay.
be it'll be a raffle, so we'll put everyone in a hat and
Does it have to be a good comment to win? Yes. I say yes. I only
yeah,
want positive criticism.
I don't think we're gonna reward haters. You know,
Right. No. No gifts for haters.
that shows no pluck to get on YouTube and hate.
Right. Actually the opposite of pluck.
It's unplugged.
Pluck is face to face, mano y mano.
Exactly. Courage to face the grill.
All right, so this is the new cover, and I'll explain why there's a new name to the book and a new name to the author. So,
Yes.
backing up, staying sane by creative writing is the episode here. Creative writing can be the only way it can keep you sane is because it's an outlet for all your feelings and deep-seated resentments and opinions because you can insert those into the characters of your book.
Okay.
You're not signing off on those opinions. You're not putting your name to those. Those are just characters in a book, and you can say anything through them.
All
And
right.
so that's the outlet, whether it's poetry or fiction, stories or short stories. You can get it out, and I think that's the best way to summarize staying sane. Because in reality, writing that novel was the most difficult, stressful, just spirit crushing project I've ever encountered in my life of creative projects.
That really stuck out to me when you told me that some years ago, how brutal it was. It really surprised me because I've never written a novel or anything. The only thing, I've written is a dissertation, which was difficult, but not soul crushing.
The reason it was so difficult is because to piece the story together into a coherent A and Z, like a beginning and an end, it
Hmm.
takes endless thought and planning and strategy. To have all the characters who say they're going to do something actually do it, and all the little hints you give at the beginning actually pan out. It's
Okay.
back and forth, back and forth. An example of that, to give you some context, is when I started this book, cell phones weren't smart. We had just, I mean, believe it or not, we just had flip phones and razors and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Because I took a lot of, because I took so much time off to do this and that other projects. I didn't really, hammer at this book every year. I had to go back and rewrite it to fit smartphones, which solved a lot of the problems of these characters. I had to figure that out.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So the
Technology
point,
solves some of
yeah.
your problems.
So the backup is Tomorrow River. I'll just read the back of it. This is a summary of the book for people to know, and
Okay.
it's fiction. It says, when the body of a well-known, stunning, and troubled local is found in Tomorrow River, Montana, Will Benton, a new arrival at the lonely outpost, becomes a prime suspect. Aaliyah Reynolds had no shortage of ardent, deluded, and downright dangerous admirers, but Will has personal reasons for bringing the real killer to justice. So begins a dangerous journey that will throw him into the center of a murderous world of wild men, spirits, travelers, and thieves. And the last kind of summary is, there's still a place where civilization ends and the past can be erased. Just the kind of place Will Benton was looking for to heal a secret pain and to live some adventure. With vivid style, Tomorrow River brings to life the harsh and stunning landscape of northern Montana and reveals the unforgettable characters within it, as each must answer to the demands of a strange existence in the wild. So, what made me want to write this book is I spent a summer in Montana, in a part of Montana called Glacier Park, which is a national park in the Rockies. And the Rocky Mountains up there are really stunning, and they look different than they do in Colorado and other places. So I just wanted to go and spend a summer there during college. And almost everybody in this book actually existed. They're actually real people except for a couple. And
Wow.
so it's just, when you go to like a national park like Yosemite or Tetons, and you work there, you're going to meet people from all over the country or the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you meet a lot of weird characters and goofballs and drug addicts and
Yeah.
and outdoors people, and so that planted the seed was that summer, and that was back in the '90s. So the story is a girl gets murdered and Will Benton gets framed, and he figures the whole thing out at the end.
Okay.
And by reading it, you get a feeling of what it's like to be in Montana on a reservation and near a reservation and in the most beautiful place in the world where a lot of weirdos are attracted to and swarm like a beehive. So that was the genesis of it. Why I wrote it was because I've always wanted to write a novel. My degree in college was English literature, so
Okay.
I was always a big fan of literature and reading, and I just felt like I had one story in me. And so I started in the '90s with a software called Snowflake. I'll put a plug in that because it's still around. You can still buy it. It's real cheap. But that software is the only reason this book exists.
Oh, really?
Because like a lot of people, I dabbled starting a novel. I'd, write a chapter or the beginning of a outline. And it's
Yeah.
just always kind of left off and going nowhere. And there's no real way to take it to the next level. And what Snowflake makes you do is it starts with one sentence. That is your book. And then it makes you take that into 5 sentences and it explains why 5 is the one that works, the number that works. You take each one of those 5 sentences and expand those into paragraphs, explains why you do that. And that's the snowflake, analogy.
That's fascinating. I had no idea. I thought you
And it
had like
makes
a
you
typewriter and
Yes. And you
finger
can't go to the
packing.
next level without doing the first one, but it makes you kind of figure out where all these tributaries of story go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, any good story, you can kind of see the threads and how they weave together, and that kind of makes it a good read. So, I mean, it makes sense that you'd have to think that through. I don't know how you'd map that out, but it certainly, I mean, that software sounds ideal for that.
You map it
So,
out because your one sentence is a guy in Montana gets framed for a murder. And then the 5 sentences, a guy moved to Montana to get away from some problems he had in Atlanta where he came from. A guy meets a girl, the girl gets killed, he gets framed, he finds a real killer. Then you separate those 5s into paragraphs.
mm,
And there's looks like an Excel spreadsheet. I think it's written off Access and Microsoft Excel. So you click on these different tabs. One tab is all your characters and what they're supposed to do at the end of the book. So I give
wow.
credit to that guy, and hopefully he can still buy his software because it's very cheap and it's a brilliant, brilliant method. So I did
Yeah,
that.
that's really cool.
Yeah. And then I did that. And then when it was first finished, the copy you have was the first product, and it's horrible. It's crap. It's garbage
Why do you say that?
because it's full of unnecessary scenes that don't move the plot along.
Oh, okay.
It's
You
full
feel
of weird like tangents and diatribes that I write as the author, which really doesn't move the story. It's more just like commentary and monologues.
okay.
And so what I did is I found an agent in New York called her name is Maya Rock, and she did a cutthroat edit called a line edit. A line edit is not just, hey, you missed a period and a comma and this and that. A line edit is, hey, this scene doesn't make sense. This
Right.
scene doesn't have anything to say about anything. And this character was supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And
I've
so
seen people do that with like scripts, and stuff
Mhm.
for movies, but I never really thought about that for a book. But
And that
that's
generated Tomorrow River. And I called it Tomorrow River because I got worried that there's a couple real people in there that they're kind of exposed to some bad behavior
uh,
in my book. And you could
right.
kind of piece together if you were there at the time, it's possible somebody in that summer that I was there could figure out that's them. And so I wanted to remove it from the actual place, which you'll
Okay.
have to edit out because the book you have is the actual place in Montana that this happened. I just want a little removal from the real place just
Yeah,
to
that makes sense. You want to
keep it a little anonymous.
protect the guilty.
Exactly. I
Gotcha.
think the main guy in the book would know that it's him from if he read the book, and you'll know what
Right.
that means. Read it.
I
So that
kind
was
of
a
want to
change.
know, are you in the book? Mm.
Well, the main character is basically me. I mean, Will Benton goes to work in the summer, and
Okay.
he's me in the book, but I didn't do the things that he does in the book, and I don't believe the things that he says in the book. But
Okay.
that's the job I had, is the job he had.
Okay.
He gets there and he finds out that he's gonna be working a kitchen in a cafe and then working the front store with a gift shop.
Gotcha.
So back then, you couldn't really get a lot of information online, so he just basically got the job in Glacier Park, where they said he'd be working either at a big lodge or at a small outpost. You get whatever you get when you show up. So when we showed up, they basically assigned us to wherever we're gonna work, and I got assigned to this store, and so it's actually like
How'd you even find out about this place?
I think there
I
was,
never
like
even heard of it.
I think in college, at this actual university, they had summer job pamphlets, and you could pick them up.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and there was Yosemite and Tetons, and you can work in,
Oh,
anywhere
cool.
you want, and I wanted something that was more remote, not something that was really crowded and touristy,
Right.
and I'd never heard of this place either.
Yeah.
And it was really late in the summer where you're supposed to have already gotten the job. It was the last possible time frame, and that was the only place I think that was even still hiring, which tells you about how remote they were. And I got the job, and they assigned me to this camp store, and I didn't know what it was, and I get a ride there, and I get out, walk in, it's a gift shop and a cafe, and that's it. You live upstairs.
Uh-uh.
So that was it, and it was tough because I took so much time off. I had to go back and reintegrate myself in the story and re-update it for technology, and then, crank
So
out a
how
new
long did you
version.
take what kind how long of a break did you take?
I would take a year here and a year there, and I'm embarrassed to say that it took 10 years to finish this book as you
Yeah.
see it here. 10 freaking
Wow.
years.
Yeah. So you would just get to the point where you just get sick of it and you couldn't stand being near it? Or you
Yeah,
just got
I screamed out loud at some points. I would just
Oh,
scream
wow.
out loud that I just don't know what to do with this character, and I'm just sick of this. And one way I got a lot of it done is I rented a cabin near your cabin, probably in Gatlinburg,
Yeah.
and I spent 4 days up there just writing most of it, getting it done.
Locking yourself in,
I did, yeah,
chain
and that got
yourself
me
to the
through.
nest.
Yeah, that got me over a big hump.
Wow, that's commitment. That's pluck right there, man.
It was it
Face
was
the de
maddening.
face your demon.
Yeah, and so Maya Rock did her job. I produced Tomorrow River, and then I started shipping it out to agents and publishers. And it wasn't a must to have to publish this, because I know these days you can put it on Amazon, you can do what you want. It's not necessary to publish. You don't have to be in Barnes and Noble. But
Right.
I thought it'd be just a nice last project to send it out into the world and see what people.
Sure, yeah, that's a great idea.
You always get the same response from agents and publishers. It's due to the large volume.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about that response is, due to the high volume of submissions, I've never met anybody who's written a novel. I've never met a real author who's, the guys that write books every year. I don't know anybody that's written a novel and submitted it. And I'm like, who are all these people submitting manuscripts? Unknown Joes around the country. Like, I don't know who these people are. How are there that many submissions?
Yeah,
You
right,
think somebody who cranked out a full manuscript would be a rarity. And
right.
whether it's good or bad, it's like, how do they get that many? I don't know anybody that's writing novels. It's always very strange.
That is strange. You gotta there's probably like a niche market in there, publishing the unpublishable.
Right. Which doesn't it's not gonna fly off the shelves. No readers are
Well,
gonna wanna
there's gotta be
grab an
there's
unpublishable
gotta be
book.
some good gems in there. You just gotta dig
Yeah.
through them and
Well, the famous, anecdote is that the writer of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, wrote a book in a pen name and submitted it cold turkey to agents, and they all rejected it. That was like
mm.
10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So, it takes pluck to try to publish a book, because I think, like, a band trying to make it big and get a recording contract, or a dancer trying to get hired by a ballet company, or a poet or a painter. It's just the odds are against you. And so
Oh, yeah, I mean, doing professional art, whatever, it's a roll of the dice.
it is.
The stars
And
have
you
to align, and you look read some books, you're like, "How? How did they get published? Like,
right.
this is crap."
Or
And
how did
then
this band get picked up?
right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And it's not the best people to get picked up. It's not the worst, but it's just you gotta be in the right place, the right time, have some talent,
Yeah.
some charisma.
Why don't you
But
find some publishers and just mail one to their house? Go stalker on them.
well, that's a good idea. And at this point, it doesn't really. There's nothing off
What
the
can you
table.
lose? Right.
Yeah, I don't know. So you hear about Amazon people that just post their books and then it blows up. So, there's different ways to do it. And it wasn't a big deal for me. I just really, honestly, no BS, wanted to finish a novel and have it be something I like and I'm
Well,
cool
with all
with.
that work, it makes sense to try and push it to the highest level.
Yeah, right. There's no reason not to.
Yeah. So is
It's a
it
separate project.
available now on Amazon or?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll put a link in the description at some point.
Yeah.
And it's a character driven novel. I call it a murder mystery, but it's really about the people and it's very deeply into the characters. And I think to me, that's what I enjoy reading, whether it's Stephen King or whatever, even, like ancient literature or even like the classics like To Kill a Mockingbird and stuff like that. It's about characters, not so much the what happens and who does what or who done it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the people. I think the people really get you into a book or the lack thereof.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I think that kind of writing must really tap into you emotionally more than kind of a action thriller, spy novel that,
Right.
all these flat characters that are just running around doing crazy stuff.
Right. If you look at like Grisham, or probably better example is the guy that writes books like The Hunt for Red October. What's his name? Uh,
I don't know. I know,
Patterson, or we can edit this out, but just let me see. It's a good example of the kind of different style of book. Oh, Clancy.
Clancy did Red October?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at books like Clancy, they're military and plot driven. Talk smack about him because he produces a lot of good books in his genre, but the characters are not the key. It's the
Right.
action and it's the twist and it's the surprise. The characters are almost just cardboard cutouts.
Right.
The good
Yeah.
characters are all good. They're 100% good. They're good husbands. They're good, workers, and they're good at fighting and they're good at everything. And the bad
Right.
characters are all bad. There's nothing good
It's
about
very clean cut, uncomplicated.
Exactly.
So it's,
So
yeah,
I like a story where you have a complex hero who's not perfect, who has flaws, and you root for him because of that, I think.
yeah. Yeah, I think people can relate to that more. It depends on, I guess, what you're approaching a book for. If you just want kind of an entertaining ride,
Mhm.
something that's, plot and action driven will serve the purpose. But, if you want something that, you know, challenges your mind in a way that you're kind of watching someone grow in front of you, basically, and you discover who that person is, that kind of thing. I think you need something more character driven. So it
Yeah.
does sound like your book fits the bill for that. It's interesting. What's the agonizing thing? Like, take me into the agony of.
Yeah, the agony is staring down the barrel of needing to finish the story. So you basically have 3 acts in a big story. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 1 is setting up the problem. Act 2, to dumb it down, really is running into problems and encountering obstacles, and
Uh-huh.
Act 3 is finishing the job. And the further you get into the story, the more tributaries and characters you have. You gotta finish all that up. You gotta clean everything and figure out how to make this character do this and do that. And so it's just endless generating of ideas, the endless requirement to come up with a sentence and a scene and a vehicle to get them out of that scene and get them onto the next road. It's just,
Mhm.
I think creatively, it's exhausting. And sometimes you're just like, is this even good? Is it, is it even working? Is any of this,
Right.
is it all garbage? And so it's the endless creative act of moving the story through. And it's a long book. It's,
Yeah.
considered a longer novel. It's just the sheer, labor of doing that. And then also the doubt and am I wasting all this time?
Do you think in a sense, you're a boss for your own project, basically? Do you think you were a bad boss? I tell people I'm the worst boss I've ever had. When I've
Right.
had my own businesses from here and there, I was awful. I still do when I go and do something, work on my cabin or something.
In what way though?
I just work myself like a dog. It's like I don't take breaks, or
Yeah.
anything. And I was like, I
That
would never treat anybody like I treat myself.
yeah. That's exactly how I am in my day job. I don't take breaks. I crank and crank, and the paralegals that I've had are overworked because I crank and crank too much, and it's
Yeah,
within 8 hours or 10 hours, it's too much
yeah,
assignments and emails and stuff like that,
right.
and but for this book,
Yeah.
time hours and workload, no.
Okay.
Obviously, I took time off and just put it aside,
But the
but
critiquing and being hard on yourself, was
yeah.
that an issue for you? Or
Yes, I actually resented myself as my own boss.
yeah, I kind of picked up on that.
I resented my call to complete and call to what I thought was perfection.
Right.
I think I think these guys that I'm baffled by that write books every couple years,
Hmm.
dozens of books,
Yeah.
big novels like Stephen King and Grisham
Yeah.
and many others, and how they are able to crank out that flow is one thing is you get that muscle generated, you get good at it, and you're able to produce really good books over and over. But I think it's maybe don't sweat every little thing.
Yeah.
Don't sweat every little question and just push forward. Have a little pluck and finish that scene and don't worry about it.
Well, as you're
But
talking about this grueling thing, I was thinking like building a character is like making a puzzle. Like, you're creating puzzle pieces as you go. You can imagine like creating a puzzle piece by piece by cutting it out and adding it in. It'd be
yeah,
like, how am I going to finish this? And how is the next puzzle piece going to fit in? And not only that, so you're making a puzzle for each person, but then all those puzzles have to fit together to make the
right.
book. And it's like, this is
You
like
were,
impossible.
yeah. If you were assigned the job of here's a house, I want you to create 4 people from give them names, give personalities, and give them
Yeah.
desires.
Right.
Give them something they want,
Yeah.
and make them all work. Make all their desires kind of work in the same way, so it makes sense. And then finish the job and make it kind of a cool ending from
Yeah.
scratch. And so the murder of the girl was the way to keep these characters doing something together. Otherwise, it'd be just like, a household of people, like a reality TV show.
Okay.
And so, like in reality shows, they say, well, we're going to send you off to do a game today. We're going to make you compete for this. That's to get all the characters together. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense.
Uh-huh.
And so the murder was what drew everyone together in this camp store and made everybody end up in the same place, more or less, or at least end up in a completed place.
So a crisis brought otherwise strangers together.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to, you don't want to, you want to avoid tropes and cliches. And that's real easy for me personally to run into is to make somebody a cliche. Even like the Blackfeet, the Native Americans up in the reservation that we were at. We hung out in the reservation a lot. I want to avoid that because it's real cheap to throw that in there and then move on to the next chapter.
Right.
And so I was very careful to make these people real people, not just the crazy girl and the wild partier roommate and the
Hmm.
jerk boss and stuff like that. No, but it's crazy when you start a project like this. It's going to take a long time. It wouldn't take 10 years for most people, but it did me. But it's going to take a long time, and it's going to be thankless in terms of any money or
Right.
profit, most likely.
Yeah.
And you're basically just going to throw it out there to whoever wants to know about it. But if you feel like you had a cool experience and you feel like you have some pluck, you can actually sit down and use Snowflake or whatever software you want, and you can
Hmm.
actually put together a story. And I think there's it's just one of those art projects that really has your stamp on it. Like this kind of
Yeah.
story has my vibe, and I think it's nice to have that out there. Like
Are
when
you
you write a song.
are you happy with it? The
I
album?
am now. Yeah.
It was
This
it wa
really is this is the second draft.
yeah,
So
okay.
Maya Rock made me produce the first draft. Then there was one final big edit after that for a few reasons, and that produced this baby here.
Okay.
And
Do
I'm
you
happy with it.
good. Do you have another book in you?
I swore when I was done with this, I'll never write another book. But then I thought of another one. So that
Jeez. You're a
I
glutton
swore
for punishment.
the day I put this on Amazon, the final version, which is in itself a pain in the ass
Yeah,
with
I bet.
the way it works when you upload to Amazon. And it's a good program they have. It's not their fault. It's just very complicated
Yeah.
to make it like visually make sense.
Yeah.
I swore never again, never, never again. But then I thought I do have one other idea that might be pretty cool.
So we'll interview you in 10 years and see how it
Right.
came out.
A
Well,
bunch of
now
gray
you've done it
hairs.
once. I don't think you've learned a lot on the way, it
I
sounds
have. Yeah.
so
I realized I was really just I had too many digressions. Like it's easy to start writing about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with a story. And plot
right.
is important.
Yeah.
Without plot, you're basically just reading nonsense and, so that
Yeah.
was I think now that I know that, it's gonna save me a lot of time. I could have saved long chapters that I didn't really need and didn't really serve the purpose. It was more like an essay.
Well, I've gotta imagine there's a lot of unfinished manuscripts out there, a ton. I mean,
There
I would
are.
just think there would be so many people who are like, "I never wanna see this, project ever again." And
Yes.
how did you become this skinny end of the bell curve where you keep coming back to this thing that you just makes you feel terrible?
Dogged persistence and the rejection of not finishing it.
Was
I
the
was
pain
I
yeah, was the pain of not finishing worse than the pain of
yes,
cracking it at it?
100%. And also I had the benefit of having the whole story in my head from the beginning. I think
Oh,
some people will write I think, prolific writers, novel writers write many books. I think they have to jump in without a full story and just work it out.
they just follow an idea, but you had the whole thing.
I did. I knew what was gonna happen at the end from the beginning, and I just had to expand and expand and expand. So that kept me going too, but no, I just like, I love literature. I've always read a lot, and I majored in English lit, and I had this unique, crazy experience with real people in Montana that would have been a waste to throw away and not.
Yeah,
So if you put all that together, I had to do it, and it would have been very tragic if I hadn't, just for me.
yeah,
So it was just that, yeah. It was like, it's too good. It's too good of a story, of mine at
yeah,
least, and it was gifted to me by this crazy summer.
yeah,
But I think it's it's a crazy art form, unlike painting and dancing and music and stuff like
yeah,
that. Like every art, it's different.
yeah,
The frustrations are different. There's many frustrations with music, as you know,
yeah,
but the writing, it's very intellectual and cerebral frustrations. Not my hands aren't doing what I want, or this is just, this is too heavy or too loud or too soft. It's a very in your brain thing, and that can drive you crazy. There's so much doubt. You don't know.
Well,
Is it good? Is
the
it
scope is so much bigger, I think, with like a book versus most art or songs or that kind of thing. I guess an orchestra might not be, but I mean, a lot of times it's you're writing a 5 minute thing, or you're painting on a so and there it probably I think this kind of curse of creativity I and drive combination probably follows people in every area of art, so but, yeah, it seems like, when you were talking about it, I thought, "This is like a mental." I kept thinking about, like, being at the gym, and so there's been times when I worked out, and I was so sick, I was lying on the floor, and I felt like I was gonna vomit, I thought, "Why am I even here?" I mean, I'm a middle-aged guy, and I'm, like, killing myself to try and, squat this weight and stuff like that. It's like, "This is crazy. I gotta stop doing this," you know? And it just that it's the self-induced stress is so intense, but man, when you when you get to the level you're going to, it's the euphoria is pretty awesome. Did
Yeah,
Have you ever gotten to the point where you were felt a sense of relief or
I did. It was a
accomplishment?
final I had a final read through that I just did myself. One final time to maybe fix a word here and fix
Uh-huh.
something there, and that was it. And that was only like a year ago. And that's when this was put up online. So that feeling was a huge satisfaction because the whole
Yeah,
time you're writing it, it feels like this is pointless. I mean, no one's gonna read it. No one's
right.
ever gonna see it. And like, what is the point of all this? It's more of just it's almost you feel like you're writing it and you're gonna throw it in the basement and pack it up in a box and never see the light of day.
Yeah.
So that sense of pointlessness was constantly around, but it was also fun. There was a lot of enjoyment in a sentence you think is really good or a phrase you think is really cool or a perspective you think was really interesting. And so there was a lot of fun moments of giving birth to this idea and this character doing this.
Yeah,
So it's very up and down, but yeah, it was just it's like squatting a big rack. It's like, I can do this today and it's going to be cool, but I have to keep doing it or it's pointless. If
right.
I stop working out tomorrow, all this is basically gone. It only takes about 3 weeks to
Yeah.
lose, and it's like, I gotta do it forever, or at least keep doing it pretty good, and
Right,
so there's
right.
that
Use
plodding
it or lose
away.
it. Yeah. S
Working out's the same way, working out gets you to a
mm,
level, and you gotta keep treading that
right.
water, and you gotta keep treading, but it feels so good when you walk out of the gym. It's that feeling of euphoria and that dopamine and that
Yeah,
calmness
totally.
and stress relief.
So
So, yeah,
so you've got another book idea. Have you committed to doing another one?
all I've done so far is write the one sentence on that little crappy
Snowflake.
software. That's it. And I was like, "Nope," and I put it away.
Okay.
But
Not ready.
it has to do with fatherhood, it has to do with the Deep South,
Hmm,
and it has to do with some big crime. So,
okay.
all things
Sounds
I'm familiar with.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
lack of
no, really.
fatherhood or the good of fatherhood, whatever, but
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
do you have an author that comes to mind or a book that comes to mind in your life that you thought was really good in fiction?
I really liked, Stephen Lawhead.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. So tell people who don't know about him
I could
what
not
what he wrote that you liked. Like, what kind of genre was it? What kind of
yeah.
world did he create?
So he did a Celtic myth, he did a trilogy. It kind of feels like maybe something Tolkien would do in a way a little bit, in that it has a lot of kind of mysticism about it. But when you're talking about characters, like, it's the characters he created. I was like, I really identified with the main character, feeling like you want so much out of life and feeling inadequate to get there. Looking
Yeah,
around and comparing yourself and seeing somebody that's got, you know, seems like everything going on and feeling like you're struggling all the time. And I just identified with that character so much. I was like, I must find out what happened. And I'm a slow reader, and I've tried to read books. My kids are like, "No, it's okay, Dad." I mean, I'm just stumbling through words and stuff, and my wife reads to them, and they love that. But yeah, Stephen Lawhead's books, and I've got it on audio. I've reread it. I've listened to it on trips, and
I
I
need to
just
do that too because
it
it's
is
been
so
many
great to
years.
go back and revisit it, and I didn't even like how it turned out. I was so bummed at the
Yeah,
end. I was like, I was I was so bummed, and yet, the character didn't it wasn't like a destruction of character kinda ending, but
right. But
it
it
was
wasn't the payoff or the
yeah,
climax.
it was yeah, I had imagined it being different, but, he was a different person afterwards, so, yeah, it's totally yeah, Stephen Lawhead, I think, is really unrecognized given
Agreed.
the talent, and so I thought it makes some great movies and stuff, and or some yeah, some I thought it'd be a good movie, and I've had my kids read it and they've enjoyed it, and
Yeah. We
so
had a writer live up the street from us in Birmingham named Robert McCammon who also was kind of underappreciated. He got some notoriety for one book that he wrote, and so I think he springboarded or sprungboard after that to sell more books and get some more deals.
Oh,
But
okay.
I read a couple of his books, and that inspired me too because he wasn't. I think he was just you know a jobber, just writing books and making enough to get by or whatever. But it
Hmm.
was not some big heralded superstar. It was just a guy off the street, literally,
Yeah.
who wrote a kind of a murder mystery that I kind of styled to some extent, just overall like Tomorrow River. So knowing somebody that does something is very helpful too.
Oh, I think that's huge to, being, inspired and gives you hope that you can achieve it.
Right. I mean, when do you ever meet writers, like famous writers? When do you ever meet famous musicians that much? But if you know somebody that's done something A to Z, it gives you that spark for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. It's really fascinating hearing this project that you took on and the tenacity that you brought to it. And I gotta, I gotta think it's made you a better person, you know?
Yeah, it's given me some pluck in the sense that I know I can get through a major novel and put together creative writing, and it makes me better at work, I think, because I can use a lot of that
Mhm.
forethought into how people are gonna behave when it comes to doing trials and choosing a jury and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Whenever you exercise your mind around people's personalities, I think it helps you in your marriage and, at work and stuff like that.
Sure.
And writing that kind of novel is all about people's personalities, which are 99% of what we deal with every day.
Yeah. There's a real psychology to this that I'm hearing, not having done it myself, but the idea of getting to know a character so well. And
And there's a big theme, I've been told there's a big theme of forgiveness and of all the fathers in the book are lousy and a couple other themes that come through. So I think that psychology of me is in there as well, which
well,
is fun.
I did read your first draft of it, and I'll read your second one, the final draft. I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow River is the name of the book, and it's available on Amazon. We got a link in the description. Yeah.
And the what goes down there pretty bad.
Yeah.
One summer in the 90s.
Sounds crazy.
So stick with it, people. If you start a project, don't give up. You will get to the end of it. And like any construction project, it's all about the right tools. And I found a good tool in software that can help.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Sounds
Thanks,
good.
John. It was
We'll see you next time.